The time has arrived for what I have been saying is one of the biggest shifts in Jehovah's Witness doctrine in decades, and it finally was released on JW.org. So let's talk about it.
The greatest secret ever!
Hello and welcome back to the JW Thoughts channel. My name is Wally, and today we need to talk a little bit about the annual meeting. So, a big thing that people were saying or theorizing was that they weren't going to actually release the talks demonstrating those new changes that they made. If you've been following this channel since October, you know exactly what I'm talking about, but basically the long and short of it is Jehovah's Witnesses now say that it is okay for people to make a last second, fourth quarter, three-pointer. They can find salvation after the Great Tribulation. So the Great Tribulation is when all the world's governments are going to turn on all the world's religions, and that is going to spark what is known as the Great Tribulation. So basically a monumental, incredible, I don't see happening for 100 years situation of all the world's governments turning on all religions. That would be evidence that a prophecy of the Jehovah's Witnesses has actually come true.
Show me the evidence. Show me the evidence.
And after you witness that evidence, you can still come back and be a Jehovah's Witness and get salvation, which is a huge shift. It's absolutely massive, because to be a Jehovah's Witness is to be in constant fear of the Great Tribulation breaking out and being on the wrong side of the equation and then getting killed forever. So it's a huge shift. But I wanted to talk a little bit about how I think this is going to affect the Jehovah's Witness community. So something I don't often do is go on Reddit.
Around here?
Did you just say cat?
Yes, my cat. He's been missing since this
Okay,
morning.
there's no way that you're not trolling.
I'm sorry,
how
what?
could one lose a computerized axial tomography machine, known to the layman as a CAT scan, when they are literally over 350 kilograms?
No, you know
also,
that's not what I
you
meant.
don't look like much of a radiologist.
I'm talking.
But I went on there just to see maybe what people were talking about. And the first thing I noticed was there were over 1,000 people that were active on there, which the last time I was on there, I think there was like 300, maybe 400. So for there to be 1,000 active people on the EXJW subreddit seems pretty significant, or that this doctrinal change might be having an effect and people might be investigating what the hell's going on with the Jehovah's Witnesses. And I did see a few posts of people that had said this change caused them to walk away. And they were like, I really could see that this is just a man-made organization because of this change. Now, one interesting thing that I was talking to one of my friends about was kind of how they did it, because they initially released the first part of the annual meeting, but they did it a little bit out of order. So they wanted to show the time change. Oh, you don't have to report your time. And of course they had an announcement and elders letters and this, that, and the third beforehand, as like a buildup. And then they had the relaxing of the beard policy, so Jehovah's Witnesses could wear beards. Why did my voice just crack? That hasn't happened in like 20 years. Holy.
Why it's called fucking non-stick!
Witnesses could wear beards. Witnesses could wear beards. Wear beards. Wear beards. 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 Anyway, so you have these two things that make it easier to be a Jehovah's Witness, and then behind all of that, maybe hoping that people won't really pay attention or won't really notice, is this huge change that basically says you can leave. You do not have to be a Jehovah's Witness anymore, and you can still find salvation after you see evidence. So I find it absolutely fascinating that they released it in that order, and I hadn't really thought about it like that, but my friend brought it out. I was like, oh yeah, that is pretty interesting. But overall, I think that this is going to have a pretty big effect for people that were already going to leave. I think it's going to give them the excuse that they're looking for. So how I think about people leaving the Jehovah's Witnesses is you have people on the fence, you have people that are never going to leave no matter what, and you have people that are absolutely going to leave and it's only a matter of time. And the people that are going to leave and it's only a matter of time are not very cost effective because you have to put them in a kingdom hall. The kingdom hall has operating costs. They're probably people that are not donating their time or their money to the organization. So they're just kind of dead weight. So getting rid of those people is actually cost effective and will help Watchtower in the long run. And if they make it easier to become a Jehovah's Witness by lightening some of the policies, I fully see them reversing their blood policy, reversing their shunning policy, the 2-witness rule. I think that one's going to go pretty soon as well. And they're going to just do some of these things. And that way the people that are sitting on the fence are going to fall over into the side of the people that are never going to leave. Just my sort of armchair psychology looking at the situation, but that's kind of how I see things going. So this was a move to basically say, hey, let's have a big change, and then the people that were already going to leave, they'll get out quicker, they'll be gone, and we won't have to pay for their kingdom halls or their operating costs, or even better, we can maybe sell their kingdom halls, and they weren't bringing anything to the table anyway. And we can make it easier for other people to even consider joining because we're not so extreme in our belief system. That's just kind of how I see it. But hey, feel free to comment down below and fully disagree with all of that, because welcome to the new world where you can have an opinion, and that's okay. But one thing I did want to go over was a talk that I didn't discuss in my original set of videos that David Splain had, because I found it just watching it over again, because I was trying to see if they edited anything out, and watching it again, I was like, yeah, maybe this is worth talking about for a couple of different reasons. So let's look at the build-up to Jeffrey Jackson's talk about what I consider the biggest change of 2023, and it's kind of, the two talks could be combined into one, so he's basically trying to set a biblical precedence for why they're making this change. So yeah, let's get into it.
But have you ever asked a similar question? Maybe when you were just coming into the truth? Have you ever asked, for example, will none of those who died in the flood get a resurrection? Even those who may never have heard of Noah? And what about Sodom and Gomorrah? Will everyone who died in Sodom and Gomorrah sleep an everlasting sleep? The women, the children, babies. And was there not one redeemable Assyrian soldier in that band of 185,000 who died at the hand of Jehovah's angel? We don't have the answer to those questions. But we do know one thing. The merciful judge of all the earth will do what is right.
This is a masterclass in how Jehovah's Witness leaders, the governing body, raise themselves above God. Because clearly, the Bible doesn't mix words. He examined the world of Noah's day and saved Noah and his family. It's Sodom and Gomorrah. They even had a whole conversation. Well, if there's 50, well, if there's 20, well, if there's 10. And then God sent his angels and saved only Lot and his family. So he made an examination. He tried to see who was worth saving, and he saved the people that he considered to be worth saving. Now they're saying, well, maybe God made a mistake.
Well, okay. But only if God will kill a bunch of babies for no reason.
That's not a problem. God does that a lot in the Bible.
You know, a silly old God, sometimes he gets a little bit cuckoo in the dooku and just kills some children and women and men and boys and girls by accident. And who's to say? Because at the end of the day, we need to just think about this as God made an oopsie. It makes absolutely no sense. If like the story of Noah was the entire world was wiped out. And there was a restart, a new Adam and Eve. Or Sodom and Gomorrah. No one was saved. Okay, I could get my head around what you're trying to say, but he made an inspection. He tried to see who was worth saving, and he saved those people already. So you're saying that God made a mistake. The governing body is raising themselves above the God of the Bible. Now, I mean, obviously I have problems with those stories for a lot of different reasons, because there are babies in the time of Noah. Can they make an actual choice? But if you're going to be someone, or going to be an organization that is so stringent and will use the Bible as a puppet to do things like shun people, to have people kill themselves or kill their children because they won't get life-saving medical intervention, if you're going to use the Bible with that much veracity, you need to at least read the dang thing. Like, you need to at least stand behind these things as well. It's so wishy-washy, so I found this to be really crazy, but let's see how the rest of this talk develops.
Wait a minute. Did I hear that right? We don't have the answer to those questions? I thought we did. In the past, our publications have stated that there's no hope of a resurrection for those who died in the flood or those destroyed in Sodom and Gomorrah. But do we really know that? The men of Sodom and Gomorrah were certainly wicked, and they deserved to die for what they did. But did they know any better? How often did Lot and his family preach to them? And are we saying that if special pioneers had been assigned to Sodom, that they would have had no success whatsoever in preaching to the Sodomites, helping them to turn around and come to a knowledge of Jehovah? Can we say dogmatically that not one Sodomite would have repented if Jehovah's requirements have been explained?
Now, just for a little bit of context, let's look back at the talk that preceded this one, because they said a real whopper.
Well, knowing this, then, we are not embarrassed about adjustments that are made, nor is an apology needed for not getting it exactly right previously. We understand this is how Jehovah operates. He reveals matters gradually when it is needed.
So the governing body can change their mind, change doctrine, and there's no need for them to apologize. So that is how they're building up to this moment. And then the second layer of this is he's full out admitting, hey, if you're having the sort of cognitive awareness that, hey, that's not what we thought, that wasn't the truth, it's because they can change their mind at any point in time whenever they want. So if you're a Jehovah's Witness and you're watching this video, I want you to really think about this. Like, really give some time and think about this concept. Every single thing that you believe is subject to change by people that feel they don't have to apologize to you if they get something wrong. And that can have consequences. Imagine a scenario, which is a real scenario that has happened in the Jehovah's Witness organization, where they make an adjustment or a change about medical advice or guidelines that you have to follow in order to be in line with the Bible. There are people who have died because of listening to Watchtower's medical rules, whether it be with blood transfusions or organ transplants, whatever the case might be. And weeks or months later, years, they change their policy and say, actually, that's not in the Bible. That means that by following Watchtower, you could die. Your child could die. And Watchtower will say, we don't have to apologize when changes are made. Blood is on their hands, and yet they say they don't have to apologize. Let that concept really sink in, and ask yourself if anyone deserves to have that much power and control over your life.
Well, I mean, the time I was told it sounded reasonable.
Now let's talk about the flood of Noah's day. In the past, we've said that any who died in the flood would not be resurrected. But does the Bible say that? Now, Noah's contemporaries certainly were wicked.
Well, there you have it, straight out of a governing body member's mouth. They will claim something is biblical and the truth, and it's not. They are lying to people. If I was a PR manager, I wouldn't have allowed this clip. I would have edited this bit out because you can't say that. Well, previously we said this, but was that really biblical? But you were claiming it was biblical before. So what you're saying is that you're admitting that you have no idea what the Bible actually says, and yet you're the ones that people have to turn to find out what the Bible actually says. It's not a good look, bro.
Now let's talk about the flood of Noah's day. In the past, we've said that any who died in the flood would not be resurrected. But does the Bible say that?
When I started lying, I don't know. It's like it just came out naturally. It just happened.
I don't believe you. That is not natural. That is a crime.
Can we guarantee that everyone living on earth during that time knew of Noah and what he was doing? We can't really say that. And can we say that if someone had been given an adequate opportunity, he still would have turned his back on Jehovah? We just can't say that.
But you did say that.
Nor is an apology needed for not getting it exactly right previously.
You were the ones saying that, and now you're just like, but we can't say that. The logical question is, so then why did you say that?
Sometimes I'll start a sentence, and I don't even know where it's going. I just hope I find it along the way. Like an improv conversation. Improvisation.
Now, of course, if Jehovah didn't bring them back, they wouldn't have any grounds for complaint. They've had life. And life is more than any of us deserves. As you know, when Adam and Eve sinned, Jehovah could have destroyed them right away, but instead, he gave them the opportunity to have sons and daughters, and as a result, we were born. So the fact that you and I have drawn one breath is pure, undeserved kindness on Jehovah's part.
This was something that I didn't notice the first time that I watched this when it was happening live, and it really caught my attention now. But you have a leader of a religious group that controls millions of people all over the world telling them that they don't deserve to be alive. That's a big statement you're making there, big guy. Just straight up telling people you don't deserve to be alive, so be happy with whatever you get. That is a very controlling message that the governing body are trying to send out. I thought initially that this talk, and that's why I didn't talk about it when the governing or the annual meeting happened for the first time. But now that I'm watching this again, it's kind of got some whoppers in it, doesn't it?
Well, what do we know about Jehovah? Why can we trust him to do the right thing? Well, look at the record.
So at the beginning of this talk, he suggests that maybe God accidentally killed innocent people during the flood or during Sodom and Gomorrah. You know, hey, could babies, maybe no one heard even though they died. And then he says, well, how do we know God will do the right thing? Well, look at his record. He always does the right thing. That's like saying someone that's committed 14 counts of vehicular homicide is going to be a safe person behind the wheel. Brother, what are you saying? This is like the most perplexing way of thinking, and it really demonstrates, to me at least, that I don't know how many Jehovah's Witnesses are actually paying attention at this point. Are Jehovah's Witnesses even thinking a tiny little bit about what they're saying in these talks, maybe that's why it's easy for them to make changes like this, because they know the majority of witnesses are there socially and aren't there for the theology or spiritually or anything like that. Dude's like, hey, God made some mistakes in the past, accidentally killed a few babies and innocent people, but you know what? In the future, we can trust him, because just look at his record. What is happening?
Now, isn't that encouraging for someone who strayed from the truth, maybe got involved in some bad conduct, and far too many of these are afraid that Jehovah will never forgive them. They would love to come back to the truth. They would love to come back to Jehovah, but they're afraid that Jehovah is not going to accept them. And yet he says, none of the sins he committed will be held against him. The case of King Manasseh makes the point. He was in a dedicated relationship with Jehovah, and yet for most of his life, he did what was wrong. But when he repented, turned around, and started doing what was right, Jehovah wiped the slate clean.
The point of this entire talk is to set up this historic change that they are going to make in the next talk. But here is really the kit and caboodle of the whole thing. You can make mistakes, you can do bad things, but prior, we used to say that, no, you got to be on the straight and narrow all the time because you never know, God might just smite you. And now they're trying to relax that a little bit, so they appear less culty. They appear less extreme. And as we all know, and I've reported on a lot, governments are taking notice of how extreme Jehovah's Witnesses are. They're getting banned or losing their religious status. They're getting investigated by governments because of their extreme stances that they take and the way that they look at the Bible. So they are trying to peel back from those hot takes that they had before and just make it a little bit less hardcore. The whole world is not going to die if you're not a Jehovah's Witness. It's fine. We'll just relax from that a little bit more. So I find it all very fascinating. Let me know down in the comments below what you think is going to be the result of some of these changes. With all of that being said, that's about all I can stand listening to this talk. So stay safe, be kind, and look yourself in the mirror every day and remind yourself that you're a beautiful human being. And have a good ass day.